and maybe page 636.
I don't see either of them.
They didn't pass the house, so you might not, but
Oh, yeah, we don't have anything.
yeah.
You guys
Side.
have
They
page
didn't pass the house.
55, one,
Yeah.
2, 3, 6, 3,
So-
5, 6, 7,
So it's just-
5, 1, 8, 6.
Yeah. So they're in reverse order, right?
Yes.
So, well, they are in reverse order, so the highest number bill is up top. Okay. And the lowest number bill is on the bottom. We don't have either of those. We are now live, so welcome back to Senate Economic Development. On March 27th. We have Wendy Morgan, the witness chair from Legal Aid, and we just need a bit of narrative on what Legal Aid is requesting and how far you've gotten with the Department of Labor on that request.
Okay, so we, Wendy Morgan from Motley Lane. We started talking with the Department of Labor about this issue, and this issue is that many people got overpayments as a result of getting COVID benefits when the Department of Labor was in such turmoil and so much was going wrong. And the federal government allows those overpayments to be waived. The state does not. So that's all we were trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
Is to allow the waiver of these kinds of overpayments.
Mm-hmm.
So we worked with Representative Bloomley and Representative Jerome. And at the same time, and what came out of that is H 781.
Okay.
And that was 781 includes all of the changes that we understood the department wanted. They have not confirmed whether they can go along with this bill.
That's fair.
And they've just said, look, we're not gonna decide until we have to testify, so I'm looking forward to.
That's why it's
getting
fair for you to do the best you can and we'll look favorably upon your efforts.
And just ask Wendy a question.
Yeah.
Do you know what the total is that we're asking the state to waive? I mean,
Total amount of
in our
money?
pockets, it's in our constituents' pockets right now.
Right,
So how much is that
the
amount?
total amount, I have no idea. I don't know if they do or not, presumably they do.
Oh, I assume the DOL, they said it.
I wouldn't.
I know, I wouldn't assume anything. Yeah.
I will say they're spending a lot of money, probably not collecting many of these.
Right.
payments.
Yeah.
Like my
Right.
son was working for Human Services, and was laid off during COVID.
Sorry.
And it was fine. His life has completely changed and it's going in a good direction.
Oh, good. So it was one of those success stories of
Yeah.
COVID changing your life. Okay.
But he gets overpayment notices every single month
Wow.
that says something like, I mean, it's his mail, he's an adult. It says something like, you owe $5,000 and please start paying $500 a month. Well, he doesn't make enough money to pay $500 a month. He doesn't frankly make enough money to,
So those are coming from the state, not
Yes.
from the feds.
from the state. So the state, from my perspective as a little person in her little home, the state's spending huge amount of resources trying to collect money.
That's a lot of mailings and.
And it's all
Right.
paper and it's like I think it's 2 pages, maybe it's only one. I
Well,
don't
and
know,
it's
but
very
mail.
anxiety producing, I imagine, for the people who get them. And don't really have an avenue to talk about their rights and responsibilities around.
And whether they did anything wrong. I mean,
Well, they
this,
didn't, they.
did.
Right, we took money that was.
We were, the people that did something wrong. Fortunately, helping people.
so
Or-
H
Yeah,
781 is like 8 pages, so it's fairly detailed on when the state can waive the money.
Mhm.
And it has to be when the person hasn't made any errors themselves and that if it's against equity and good conscience, because they don't have enough money even now just to be comfortable enough to be able to pay some back. So there are a whole lot of criteria in here for when it can be waived, but basically the person has to have not, committed fraud.
yeah.
So at the same time as Representatives Bloomley and Jerome were introducing page 781, Representative Marcotte had page 636, which is very general but related. And
What's the number?
636, which also didn't go anywhere. I'm quite sure they would have been combined if they had gone forward, but
Okay,
they ran out of time and spoke with you about H-55.
that's right. That is fair. I didn't know exactly in what context. I think they said basically stuff that the Department of Labor wants and that legal aid is working on. So you're right. I didn't know. So I don't know if they just gave up or it died in a money committee or
No, they never
just
took
let
us
it go.
on there. They
Okay.
just said,
they just let it go.
they had to do the big, privacy bill. And
Okay.
I think,
And Damien probably will clear that up. So thank you for just previewing that for us. It's a confusing time.
And we got 55 last year, this past in
Mhm.
2003.
Yeah.
23.
So we have multiple vehicles, I would imagine, but 55
Well,
might be the
yeah.
must pass one.
you guys know your vehicles.
Well,
Sometimes. But we have multiple vehicles because we're not getting anything specific to these issues from the House.
correct.
Okay.
That's my understanding. Neither of these bills came over or were taken up. These are the ones that
But
I,
Chair Marcotte did name H-55, so
yeah, so he must have had that. in-
something like that. So you've presented language to DOL
Yeah.
and
So what happened was we started with very general concepts.
Mm.
Representatives Bloomley, Jerome and I, and Susan Garcia Nofi, and the commissioner and Cameron Wood all met in the, it was a classic cafeteria solve problem. We went, and there was a lot of agreement. I mean, don't always have those situations, but there was a lot of agreement. So we
Mhm.
went back and drafted what is essentially H-781. And
yeah,
asked them, do you agree with this? Does this meet what your needs are as well as ours?
and
And,
they haven't responded.
right.
that's
They had other things to think about, so.
yes. So
Got it.
yeah, we don't need DOL's prior approval to discuss this and then get their feedback.
Yeah,
Because if people have questions about this concept of it sounds like letting go of overpayment clawback claims from DOL when the federal government is not
Clawing it back.
clawing it back.
And it will be, most of that money is probably already spent. And we don't even know how much.
Groceries.
Yeah.
That's the thing
Yeah.
about discussion.
That-
Is-
it's
I don't know
ridiculous.
what we're talking about, how much money are we talking?
Exactly, so
about?
those are the two questions I
Also,
had, how much are we
I
talking
don't
about?
know that to be able to give any answers to whether I'm in favor or opposed, I don't know enough about it.
But, right. But
How do you
you
claw
know,
it back?
there's questions about the concept, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to be in favor of. We'll get DOL in before we make an ultimate decision, but everyone understands the concept of what we're talking about.
Yes,
We don't the state doesn't owe anybody any money that we're trying to claw back right now.
no, and all they're doing is spending money trying to claw it back.
Yes, and we can talk to them about their fraud due diligence.
Well, I wanna know, among other things, how did the overpayment occur? Is it in fact
That's,
entirely, an issue that is entirely free of involvement by the person who got the money? Is there more that we don't know enough about it to make an
Mhm.
intelligent decision as to what we should do until we hear something.
Does anyone around the room have any characterizations? I mean, we can wait for DOL. We can also talk to people who.
we'll know more with Damien and.
Yeah.
We need to learn more.
Yeah.
And we need to learn it, and we need to look at the numbers and the statistics and then ask the question of how and have a reasonable explanation that can be confirmed.
Do you have any sense of what other states have done in this arena?
I don't, Susan May, she, as I say, she's the person that.
Oh, by now states must have acted on this because the feds have acted on it.
I don't wanna just leave you in the witness chair and come up with questions. We don't have Damien yet.
Sorry, appropriations should be done at around 11:30 now.
Okay.
Expects to be down in like 10 minutes.
Okay, does anybody else around the room have anything that they wanna say about this issue or the other labor bills that we're considering? David, this is a time to shine. Everything we have in our committee.
They're four.
So the
I
do you know the others that we're talking about?
Oh,
Oh, to leave the seat. Thank you, Wendy, for speaking to the concept on short notice, and we will have,
Susan and.
yeah, if you could just coordinate that with Magali, we'll probably do it in a couple weeks would be my guess.
My only concern about Susan is that she is leaving on the 14th of April.
Oh, we'll have her in before
For
that.
So it would be great, and I spoke with a Representative Markov, and he said that he can take her testimony even if the bill hasn't come yet.
Okay,
If it looks like you guys are gonna,
that's helpful. So we'll get her in as soon as we can next weekish.
that would be great. Thank you.
David. Doesn't have to be beautiful, but if you have, you know, folks that you representing that care about some of these bills, just flag that for us.
Sure. David Mickenberg here on behalf of Working Vermont. I think just in brief review of these bills, I think we generally supportive of all of them. Anything which helps to clarify and expand protections in the workplace is something that Working Vermont has been supportive of. I know that there's a bill that we were very supportive of, that this committee was very supportive of, S-102, it's still over the House. And, so we were just here to think about, you know, where that's at and thoughts on that. But I do think a lot of these are in line with this sort of common sense approach that helps to further clarify the relationship between employers and employees. And will review all of these in more detail. And if there's any red flags, I will give them. I know that the workers' comp one H560 was, I think that's the technical corrections. We spoke in favor of that.
Great.
Well, and I think we're wanting to add some of our firefighter updates from the reports
Okay.
onto this.
Do you wanna talk about that now?
I think I'd rather wait for Damien because it was his idea.
Okay.
And, he can characterize it, but maybe Chris can,
We're just pulling everybody off the wall here.
he and I talked about it.
Okay, that's a good flag.
Thank you.
Is Chris Doobie from Professional Firefighters aware of this effort? To your knowledge, to add things?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, I like being put on the spot.
Great.
After 32 years being a fireman, I can't look in the crystal ball and say it's
Yeah.
gonna be this.
You have to be fast, if you
Yeah.
wanna come in the witness chair and just talk
Sure.
about where we might head this year on firefighter support.
Absolutely. Yeah. So for the record, Chris would be president, professional firefighters of Vermont. So as you know, I've personally been pushing to get all cancer coverage for
Mhm.
firefighters, which would be a major move.
Mhm.
It's happened across the river, New Hampshire, then moving it.
Okay.
I haven't forgotten, I'm working on, like I said, getting you language from New Hampshire
Okay.
and Kentucky.
Great.
I can tell you this, to give a brief update, they're approaching it 2 different ways. New Hampshire setting aside $5 million as a pilot program to offer screenings to active and retired members of certain town health for cancer screenings. Again, it's a pilot program to see how things are going to move. I think Kentucky, I don't know, don't hold me true to this till I look at it, but talking with their state president, that they were finding an avenue that through legislation that the insurance companies, as part of your routine yearly health exam,
Yeah.
those tests are covered up to
Okay.
$1,000.
That makes some sense. Yeah.
They both make sense.
They do,
But
yeah,
it's
you
hard to
know, I
find
know it's challenging in this state because there's more volunteers in career. And
Yeah.
Kentucky is very similar,
Okay.
so I kind of looked at, listening to them because they do have the same issues we do.
Helpful.
The volunteers, I was on, it's gonna be a little more challenging on the volunteer side because
Yeah.
you work separate jobs outside of being a firefighter.
Yeah,
So I'm open to any avenue we can get to come up with a way to get that early detection screenings.
Yeah.
Like that goes, like I said, I've listened to testimony, people keep bringing up the American Cancer Society. That's just the basic hands-on. Whenever I go for my annual physical of my physician, my primary care, just, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
The ones I'm talking about are more in depth where they actually try to identify through ultrasound and the.
And the blood test.
Rare blood tests, yes.
Yeah.
And I'm actually in conversation, so I'm gonna have them up into the state, hopefully for our convention, and maybe I could try to connect you all with
Yeah.
their rep. Mass is using them with that great success, in detecting
Mhm.
cancers. At an early rate. Again, with the ultrasound, I know that company, United Diagnostics did it in a town just south of us, I believe it was Windsor. and they came up with 2 thyroid
Really?
cancers.
Wow.
Because of that detection,
Yeah.
otherwise gone undetected, so
Yeah,
any avenue we could find to get that moving, I would be grateful for.
Well, and I think that the insurance companies would like it because early detection is cheaper for them.
It is, and
I think
that's probably nice.
yeah, and I mean.
Well, I think they might have an incentive to support it and
Yeah.
include early detection screening if you could.
So what Kentucky does is somehow you are flagged as a firefighter, either,
Yeah, I don't know how it is specifically, but
Okay.
I'll work on,
okay,
we're actually having a state prevention meeting in April,
oh, good,
8 that, I'll connect
that's soon enough.
him there to find out what's going on.
Okay,
And to be honest, I haven't really approached it yet, but I mean, like, the leagues of cities and towns, that's workers' comp coverage, if they would work with the towns to come up with a way to split the funding.
yeah,
I mean, to
yeah,
me, prevention,
right,
being proactive is better than being reactive. Spend $1,000 per member up front, and it saves the town or the big cities and towns $1 million payout. of cancer.
right, yeah.
You're gonna save money over the course of 10 years.
Did we have the LCT in on the
No,
volunteer firefighter?
we were gonna do it that day, but we got short after,
Okay. Okay,
after Mike Scassa spoke, so yeah.
Okay.
I'd certainly entertain listening to theirs to hear their perspective on it.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
said
good.
you-
That's why Dave and I had this conversation.
Did you?
To
Okay.
Make sure we are including the firefighters in on this and aspects of the report too, that we could.
yeah. I
Yeah.
think it's worthwhile to move forward, even if we discover a cost. Sharing that, the state would be responsible for it. We are in a position where we can't
Yep,
try and dedicate funds from sources we think are relevant.
Yeah.
But there is a chance that we no longer have the ban on flavored tobacco, depending on what happens after session.
yeah,
And we could put some kind of chip in with
Yeah.
appropriations to say maybe some of that money could go to the cancer risk that our
Well,
firefighters.
but even so, we'll be saving over $400 million. Next year, we may have more money.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
you mean
You're not
if
gonna
we
say 400
ban-
million.
We're over time, we're gonna save a lot of.
Sadly, the tobacco industry is already developing replacement products that function like menthol,
Oh,
so
sure, yeah.
I don't think we're gonna.
We will find some money for this.
Yeah, and I'm very open to any
Yeah.
avenue we look.
Yeah.
I know some states are doing it on a grant, they'll set aside X number of dollars.
Right,
And you do the test and you submit it, but then again, I know there's gonna be logistics with who's gonna handle the grant. How does that,
Yeah.
and I don't, I wish I had the answers, like I said, every state does things a little differently. I personally would like to see some way that we could work with the leagues of cities and towns.
Yes, I
Ultimately,
think
it's,
that's smart.
yeah, if I get cancer right now, it's gonna be billed for the town Hartford leagues of cities and towns.
Right,
So why can't we come up with a
Good idea.
proactive way to say, hey,
where did we land on some of the? I mean, this was more the volunteer firefighters who raised this
Yeah.
because of their situation. But they had concerns about the age cutoffs and things that made it difficult for them when they get a diagnosis to link it to their
Yeah.
service.
yeah, and I've had that discussion with them. I know going back many years, when they first proposed this legislation, the reason I think, one of the biggest reasons they picked 65 is because statistically,
Mm-hmm.
over the age 65, no matter what occupation, you're at a higher risk of getting.
Yes, yeah.
I've told them, like Dean, the state, that I'm not opposed to maybe bumping it up to 70 something. It's gonna be
Yeah.
tough for me if it's maybe, it's just me, Christy
Yeah,
speaking.
yes,
An 85-year-old
yeah,
firefighter that
Right.
gets it, that person statistically, whether they're a firefighter or not,
yeah,
we're more apt to get it, no different than they are with cardiac. you know.
right. That's
So
fair.
you
The
gotta kind of
screening
have
is
that,
really
the
important.
insurance company need to,
Yeah.
to me, they need a cutoff. They can't say,
Yes.
okay, you're a 95-year-old,
Yeah, right,
volunteer firefighter and you get cancer.
yeah,
So I think they picked 65 because the American Cancer Society says that after 65, you are at a high risk.
yeah,
I know some states go as high as 70, maybe
Mhm.
75, so I
Right.
think there's a compromise, we say
Right.
maybe 70. And
but
the
I
other-
think, the hill we wanna battle on is probably the screenings. because,
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
the
You
early
know,
screening,
that
yeah.
helps you
yeah.
know if it's related at whatever.
Yeah, my two big ones is try to ultimately get all cancers, because we're finding, as we do more and more research and gather more and more
Mhm.
data, that cancers across the board, 5% higher, because we're exposed to the PFAS in the
Mhm.
air.
Yeah,
environments we go into, even with air packs on, there's still certain chemicals that absorb through the skin.
yeah.
That we are exposed to that. Plus, when you come out, you take your mask off, you're still off gassing,
Mhm.
all that
Yeah.
stuff. So there is a higher incidence across the board.
Right.
And of course, the detection. We can, for like I said, $1,000, $1,200,
Yeah,
$1,500 or under if you do these screenings. And they don't have to be every year either. We
Okay.
can talk with these companies. I know some states going in, let me big every other year.
mhm,
Depending on how many programs you go to, a career
Yeah.
person's been being here a lot more than a volunteer, just like.
right,
teacher.
right.
So you may want to screen them more frequently with a volunteer people.
Mhm,
It goes on 150 calls, they go every 2 years.
mhm.
And do something like that, but if you
Yeah.
can detect those cancers at stage 1 or 2 and treat it for, $150,000, $200,000, a lot cheaper than $1.5 million.
Right,
Oh, totally.
And that person's gonna make it to retire and see their
Right.
kids get married is the ultimate thing.
do you see it as, I mean, so, I don't know, on the one hand, if we just require insurance to cover it, it's a one-off, we really want that person to go, and get their screening. If we try to find money for our own program, do you foresee a way that it could be like, hey, folks, come in on, Saturday, you're all getting your cancer screenings, you're like a mobile unit, or someone's coming out to draw your blood.
Yeah, I don't know how that would work. I know.
Yeah.
So I know like down in Mass, I use them as an example with the blood test. They partner with Grail,
Uh-huh.
as that DNA, and they do the Boston BFit Challenge.
Okay,
And part of that is that if you partake in this, you do your $300
yeah,
sponsorship that in lieu, you get a free screening.
oh, yeah,
So, draw the blood there, something to help let you know your results. The
okay.
ultrasounds, that's a 45-minute test. That's,
That's
something you
between the
schedule,
doctors.
each
Yeah,
department.
yeah,
My guess is the ultrasound is the more, obviously, the more expensive test and the one that might be done if there was a trigger that sort of advanced you to doing that.
So the ultrasounds are around $350, somewhere in that range, depending on the company. So we use 325. 45-minute scan, and go through all your body parts, and also looks at cardiac risk, also
Okay,
checking your
that's
heart,
yeah.
your carotid arteries for stroke.
Mhm.
And he's actually had some great successes. If you go onto a site where they've detected aortic aneurysms, where the person got it detected, got
Wow.
it fixed, and the action of that, it can finish their career in Philadelphia. So that's,
Yeah.
to me, it's pretty major. They didn't die on the fire ground.
Right,
But that's one, just like the Grail, that they look and they say, hey, you have something abnormal here, go get it checked out.
mhm,
May not be nothing, it may be cancerous. The blood tests are about 650. They're gonna be, if they get their FDA approval, which they're working on, it's going fast.
Mhm.
That's the one that looks at the traces. Again, you hear testimony, people say, well, it's not, there is some false positives, well, there isn't any, to me, there isn't anything. It's like a vaccine, it's not 100%, no different than any test, it's 100%. But it does have, a good success in determining 50 cancers at stage 1 or 2, to the point they can say, hey, it's coming from your pancreas, it's coming from your bladder. Which is, to me, it's pretty good. So I know a lot of states have been kind of combining the two and saying, hey, between the two, it increases the likelihood of detecting a cancer. I don't know the exact number, but it's extremely high.
mhm.
We have high, high sense that these two tests are gonna detect, whatever, 90% of cancers connected. And some of it, obviously, it's not.
Yeah.
But there again, if we save 4 or 5 lives.
Yeah.
Like I said, they did one in Windsor with the ultrasound, and found 1 or 2.
That's-
I know definitely one, I believe there was 2.
Yeah.
Thyroid cancers.
Yeah,
Well, let's talk to VLCT. Let's get creative.
yeah,
And definitely something I think.
And
we
I
want to look at
appreciate
this
the effort
fall.
on this committee's taking that up, and I've been with the House Committee on this too, and they're very.
So why did they choose not to include that in this bill?
think which bill?
In the workers' comp bill. They could have easily.
Yeah, I don't-
included it.
Can't answer that for you. All I know is that when I first approached this and we spoke with Senator Booth,
Yes,
he was very eager on this.
Yeah,
And it escalated from initially fixing that one wording to adding
Right,
answers to looking
Yeah.
at the report and like I said, as we went through this, I started looking at other things and the work in progress. So
Yeah.
I'm very open to however the committee can forward look. I realize the session's winding down,
mhm.
We're not
We don't get
winding
it.
down.
Yeah.
We're just getting started on the House bill.
but I'll certainly
Okay.
tell you all that if whatever happens, that I'm gonna push it starting next session. I think that's a big win for.
Yeah, it's a
members
both
of the
and.
state. Yeah.
Anything we can do this year regardless of our funding
Yeah.
situation.
And it's certainly gone further than I thought it would. Like I said, initially it was just that wording fix,
Yeah.
and then that speaking with Senator Ruth, and we expanded it, and then the committee
Yeah.
upstairs, they added
Yeah.
lung cancers on a whim, because
Right.
we had it, but it wasn't really defined. But
Yeah,
in the CM movie, listening to Senator Clarkson, and then Senator Cummings looking at possible funding mechanisms.
Mhm.
Speaking with Senator Harrison, and it's, to me, the momentum's there. We gotta,
Yeah.
if we can do something that gets us pointed in that direction, I think it's fabulous. So,
great. Well, thanks for your work.
Alright.
Thanks for members who are doing work outside of the committee on this.
I thank this committee
Yeah.
for your hard work on it.
Thank you.
You have made us all
Same
happy.
here. Let's get you in the witness chair. My goal in the 20 minutes we have left would be to take the highest possible overview of each of the bills we have in front of us, so like lightning round, and decide if we are moving them forward in any specific context. I think some overlap, some might have another House bill coming over, like I saw the discrimination against homeless persons. I think there's another bill. So what we have in order, I can say it out loud, but we have them in descending chronological order.
Oh,
So I can
okay.
rewire, I
I
can
will
just
tell you.
I put them in ascending order.
Yeah, I got it.
I can go backwards
And you know
too.
what, the reason to do it in ascending order is actually 55 came to us last year.
Okay,
Yeah,
which do you prefer?
I can go either way, and I'm
That's why
I'm
you're
happy to
dating
just
Leonard.
take you through them.
Okay, why don't we start
So I've
with
got
H
them all open.
55. H 55
So
currently looks like
H-
the vehicle other thing.
Yeah, everything that was in agreement between the House and Senate in this bill passed last year. So this bill is a vehicle for you to send back unemployment insurance for. My understanding is that the House Chair has asked that this committee take up some technical corrections from, well, they're not technical corrections.
Yes. And we just heard
Some-
from Wendy Morgan
Yeah,
about.
well, so there are changes from the Department of Labor that are proposed.
Do you have those?
They're in a bill from Representative Marcotte, which
Yes.
is
Which one
H
you alerted to.
36.
Oh,
It's
right,
not on your
okay.
list.
Yeah,
It's in the House.
okay,
It proposes changes to how employers are relieved for unemployment charges that result from a disaster.
yeah,
And then it proposes a version of, it's one of two proposals that you'll see related to the waiver of overpayments.
Okay.
The other, you heard from Wendy Morgan on.
Mhm.
And then the other piece is that Senator Brock has a fraud prevention, UI
Okay.
fraud prevention bill that's in the committee. It's got a Senate bill number. It's not on the list I sent over
okay.
because you've had it
Mhm.
since it was introduced. So this is the potential vehicle for any and all of that, whatever you decide to move
Okay.
forward.
So can we pause there?
Yeah,
Is the committee amenable to seeing H 55 strict of everything that has passed and been signed into law, right?
yeah, I believe that everything that you could agree on with the House passed in here. I don't remember if there's anything left out.
Could
Um,
you just put whatever's left out in, just so we can see it and then
I'll
try to.
compare it to the,
I don't want to strike it all until we know what's actually.
what I'll do
Yeah.
when I put it together for you is I'll go to the omnibus bill that passed last year that had childcare, UI, workers' comp.
Right,
I
that's
think
right.
some other things in it. I'll figure out what, if anything, didn't make it in, and
Yeah.
I'll put it back in,
Great.
just so you can see it.
Great, so we'll
Um,
strike everything that passed and we'll trust Damien to do that.
Yep.
We will add, we heard about H 781 also, was that,
That's the PUA, that's the overpayment.
well, there's 636 and there's 781 now.
Yeah, 781 is the one.
Right,
that's
so
wrong and-
781 was put in by, I'm trying to remember, was it
Tip Blumley
Representative
and Stephanie
Tip Blumley?
Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
so Representative Blumley and Representative Jerome put that one in on behalf of legal aid, so.
Right.
Okay,
That's
so
what
when
Wendy
you-
was talking about.
can you put 636 and 781 into this bill
Yep,
with whatever's left? And the committee's okay with, we'll look at that
okay,
and what that looks like. Okay,
Perfect.
55 taken care of.
so 132 is
this is, in past years, this was called the Homeless Bill of Rights. It is not the Homeless Bill of Rights anymore. So the Bill of Rights portion has been stripped out, and what is left in the bill are protections against discrimination on the basis of housing status. And housing status is defined to include individuals who are homeless, about to become homeless, or are housed in temporary housing of some sort.
And this just passed the House?
It passed the House this year. Yep, it has a low bill number. It didn't make it out of the House last year because the Bill of Rights portion was holding it up.
Yeah.
So they took that out and they left in the protections for housing status. And so that's what that piece is.
Okay, I will say, on my part, I'd like to take a look at this and return to our discussion of immigration status or documentation. And I think it was immigration status that Migrant Justice was mentioning. And we,
Where are you?
132, H 132.
So yeah, so this adds housing status to our list of protected classes.
Right.
Immigration status would be another one.
Yes,
So that is a difference from race, color, and national origin.
Yes.
Because it focuses primarily on whether you're in the country legally or not.
right,
And could even include whether you're here, on a green card or something like
Yes.
that.
yeah, or refugee status or things like that.
Exactly.
So I would like us to look at those things. I know that there have been outside entities who've raised concerns to me that I think you've tried to address, Damien. That if you ask about past rental agreements, or you ask for landlord references, you might run into trouble with asking about someone's housing status, but I think you've tried to communicate to those folks who don't have that concern, or
Yeah, I don't have, I do understand that the reality of just like being an employer, you're concerned about saying the wrong thing, triggering the claim that you're discriminating. But the bill doesn't prevent you from considering references, employment status,
credits.
credit score, things like that you would normally consider as part of a rental application. It does not address issues where people provide fraudulent references. So the reference that's their past landlord is their buddy Joe or something like that. Not actually their past landlord. It doesn't, so it doesn't address some of the challenges that landlords are facing.
So we'll hear from the landlord
But
association.
yeah, it's worth hearing their testimony. I don't think it prevents them from asking about past references.
Okay,
What it does prevent them from doing is saying, you don't have a current apartment address, I'm not gonna rent to you.
great,
Or you're being evicted from state temporary housing because the funding ran out or whatever it is, I'm not gonna rent to you because you're about to become homeless. So the issue is going to be around how that's navigated, and that'll be a policy question for you when you hear from the witnesses.
Right. Okay, so I think I know that there are those who might not want to vote for this bill, but unless someone has an objection to us hearing more and engaging with this bill more, we will put this on the agenda.
As we discussed it, I mean, it's a departure from the things we have discriminated against. It's a modest
It's not part of the
departure.
Fair Housing Act nationally.
Right, so it's this,
Both of these pieces.
yeah, it's an expansion of the protected classes. Anytime there's an expansion of protected classes for discrimination purposes, you need to take into account the policy questions that come up. Are there unintended consequences? Is this a protection that's necessary? Are we seeing discrimination on this basis?
I think that's key, is
is
how
this
big is
in-
the problem?
Right, so
Right.
people are okay with us exploring this more
Well,
people have
I guess,
objections.
obviously, when you expand something like this as protected class to immigration status, and you're dealing with people who are in violation of the law, I don't think that's good policy. And I question whether or not it's something that we should even consider.
Sure. I mean, we are working to get the American Immigration Council in because I personally, I'm just speaking for myself, would like to see us try and do what states can do to give people as legal of a pathway to work as we can, who are here working and paying taxes.
It's not unlike our band box.
Right, so we're exploring a body of work that we may not ultimately resolve this year.
We can get
But
started on.
I would like to get started in the broadest sense. We should move on
Yeah.
to the Crown Act, H
Yes.
363.
H 363,
That's a labor issue. That's.
It's a workplace discrimination issue.
It's discrimination, so this is employment law and public accommodations. So what this does is it would expand upon the definition of race to clarify that it includes traits associated with or perceived to be associated with race, including hair type, hair texture, hairstyles, and protective hairstyles. And then goes to further define what a protective hairstyle is. It's commonly known as the Crown Act nationally.
Yeah.
So the question or the issue that spurred this is instances of where individuals who have a hairstyle that is associated with their race are being sent home from work or school or discriminated against because of that hairstyle. They're being told it's unprofessional, et cetera.
Athletic teams.
Right, so the, again, it gets into policy questions and factual issues that are better for your witnesses to talk to, but this is really asking whether we should clarify in the employment and other anti-discrimination statutes that race includes hair types that are traditionally associated with a particular race. The House went into further discussions about whether to expand this to religious hairstyles, et cetera, and determined not to do that because they believe that the existing law already covers that because it covers religious practice. So if your hairstyle is part of your religious practice, for example, in Sikhism,
Yes, the turban and your.
Right,
And in
so-
Rastafarianism, we have the.
right, so they ended up keeping it with race, but that's the bill you have in front of you, so
So people are okay with us continuing discussion about this. Okay. H 560, is
So-
there a way to combine that little tiny bill with 55?
so
I mean, we are allowed to take up subjects that are not necessarily germane unless someone.
right, so
Challenges.
germaneness is an issue for your body to determine.
Yeah.
That's not for me to weigh in on, it's for you to determine with your Senate secretary. Absolutely, you could combine this if it's
Are people
approved
okay
by
with
your
that?
body
So
and the
that's-
Senate secretary,
it's
yeah.
just
So
me.
what exactly suggesting we do?
Oh, yeah, well, maybe say what this is because I
So
don't
this-
know exactly.
this-
This is the
But
workers.
I'm saying we're looking at H 560, which has one or two line
Yeah.
changes.
When we did the omnibus childcare unemployment workers comp bill last year. In the shuffling at the end of the session, when the section numbers changed multiple times. The section numbers for the rulemaking around the updated workers' compensation laws that we passed last year. Got off by one number, so the House sent this over as a vehicle for any workers' comp. Language. Just a technical correction to that, the House didn't have anything else that it sent over before the deadline. But this gives you a vehicle for example, addressing the workers' comp related to firefighter counselors.
This is the firefighter.
There was a House bill that stalled and did not make crossover. It got caught in appropriations on Friday night and they adjourned without addressing it. Related to PTSD for
I
state
did hear
workers,
that. Yeah, okay.
that you may also want to look at.
So I just have a bias of wanting to combine like issues. But if people are okay, I'd like to put this in H 55 as well. So we're addressing all
Workers'
labor,
comp and UI.
technical, yeah,
Yeah, so it would be workers' comp and UI.
yeah. We often
In
do
one
that.
group, and then you could also combine
We have done this before.
132 and 363 if they both move into a single anti-discrimination bill.
Right. We could,
So-
or we could leave them, maybe those could be combined and left separate, but I at least
Yeah.
like to take workers' comp and UI and ask the questions at the same time on the floor.
But they actually, the anti-discrimination ones fit together
Great.
pretty well.
Yes, they fit together, not into this other bill.
No.
Not fitting like a
Right.
behemoth.
I mean,
But we tend to have a workplace discrimination bill and a labor.
Well, unless your
Yeah.
firefighter, has some crown X, serious hair.
Sure. Okay, we should, I don't
That's
want
a professional reason not to have serious hair, when you're going into a burning field.
That's true.
So
You don't want too many impediments.
we do have 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and I'm sure there are,
we'll get into the hair bill and how it
specifications.
does not get around issues of workplace safety.
Mhm,
You can have reasonable neutral requirements, for example, to have your hair up and out of the
Mhm.
way. To prevent unsafe conditions.
Yeah.
And it does not exempt people from things like helmet requirements in football and stuff
Right.
like that.
okay,
We can talk about all of that when we get to
Yes.
that bill.
so.
So the next two bills,
So, so when we see 5, you're gonna include 560. Do people wanna look at the PTSD language?
Yes, I think
Okay.
we'll look at the firefighters, so we might as well look at the PTSD.
I thought
That's for state workers.
firefighters is going in a separate.
No, the firefighter work is.
PTSD and workers' comp, yes, okay,
Is fine.
yes, thank you. So we'll look at PTSD as well in the H55.
This will come to life.
It's definitely, it's coming to finance.
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I've got 776 floating around. Which doesn't work with all pre-approvals, I'm told that will raise the cost of health insurance an additional 13%.
Oh, the prior
Right.
authorization.
That's over and above,
Mhm,
we've got a couple other ones, every time we add something on.
right,
And we don't do people any good by adding to what they get from their insurance if they can't afford their insurance.
sure. So yes, we'll take all of that into account in finance, that sounds fair.
Our next one is.
704.
Yeah, 704.
I will,
So-
so I'm just gonna say this was the one, that was reported on the floor by a Republican member of House General, and it had a near unanimous support.
yeah, so this just requires disclosure of compensation and job advertisements. And so it doesn't require that that's the final compensation. We can go into it, but it's basically saying that when you advertise a job, you should put what you reasonably expect the salary or the wage for the job to be in the advertisement when you do it. There is an
So-
exemption for small businesses.
Okay,
We can talk about that more. It may go together with 751, which expands equal pay protections,
okay,
because it's another equal pay.
okay. So because this had a lot of tripartisan support, 704, I'm inclined to take it up unless anybody objects.
I don't think the tripartisan was.
Well, I think Ashley Martley reported it on the floor. And I think it did come out of committee unanimously.
So anyway,
I don't wanna misspeak.
Yeah,
The action, because this again is government micromanagement of private enterprise.
Okay,
I see no reason for it.
we'll look at it. And we can decide
yeah.
otherwise.
So 704 and 751 is expanding the equal pay protections to the remaining protected classes. So last year you expanded it from sex to include race, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, and disability.
Yeah.
This would add color, religion, ancestry, place of birth, crime victim status, and age.
That's a lot, that's a lot.
Yes.
Age wasn't already.
So,
Health,
so the difference is, so my national origin is American, my ancestry is German, whereas my mom's national origin was German. So
Okay.
that's
But we
the
won't get
difference
into it
there,
right
where
now.
you can have an
To say
ancestry.
Ancestry, does that mean you look at your DNA history?
I don't wanna keep people.
It's an existing
we have 1
protected
minute.
class for everything else.
So,
Wait a minute,
I'm gonna-
we're rushing to do things
We're
that we
not-
don't understand.
We're not rushing to do anything,
So-
we're deciding if the bill is dead on arrival
Right,
we are
Well, we
taking
haven't,
additional.
we haven't enough information to even know that.
Well,
Right, that's what we're trying to
So-
decide.
But
Well,
you
you're trying
might
to do it in one
disagree.
minute, and you're rushing to get it
You
done,
might-
and that is, in my
Nobody's-
opinion, not
nobody's
proper.
doing anything. I just wanna
When
know
you're
what all
making a
these bills
decision
are.
to do it,
I just wanna know what all these bills are, so you can disagree about ancestry. And
I don't
we can still have the
understand it
reporter,
sufficiently
so
to
we
be
have,
able to
then
say
we have
that.
the reporter of the bill in to
So-
explain it better.
Ancestry is an existing protected class in our employment laws, and it's been separated from national origin. As I understand it, I wasn't here when it was added. As I understand it, it was basically to get at, for example, if your ancestry is apparent, even if you were born in this country. So this is, I gave the example for me because my mom was an immigrant, but for many people, it may be that their ancestry is apparent from their last name. And they're treated based on as if they had that national origin and discriminated against on that basis, but they don't actually have that national origin because they were born in this country to immigrant parents or something like that.
Okay.
So that's an existing piece. The question here is whether traditionally our equal pay law had just been equal pay on the basis of sex, because it is so there's the difference with discrimination. You have to show basically actual discriminatory practices. With equal pay, it's the question of, is the pay different against people, and there's a protected class at issue. I recommend getting Julio Thompson in here to talk
Okay.
about this. He does a really good background on equal pay laws. If you decide to move forward with this bill.
Do people want to move forward with understanding the bill better?
Well, given our time, yes, let's at least discuss.
Get the reporter in or something.
Absolutely.
Yep. The last bill is H 856. You have passed this language before in other bills.
Oh, that's.
The problem is, it has always been part of the paid leave bill. This has no paid leave piece in it. It's always been dropped into the paid leave bill because it touches on medical leave. What it does is it makes us consistent with the Federal Family and Medical Leave Act language. For those who don't know, we adopted our state unpaid leave law a year before the federal FMLA passed. We use the language serious illness. The problem that has come up and that was brought to the attention of the House first a few years ago, is that for some employers, there is a misunderstanding of whether it includes an injury
So a health
to a
condition.
family member. So
Health
Arthur Hamlin, who has come into this house on house, or this room on housing issues, has a personal experience that brought this to the attention of the House.
Right.
So this would clarify it to be a serious health condition. It would also make us consistent with the federal healthcare provider requirements rather than physician.
Okay, so this is the unpaid leave.
It's unpaid
Wow.
leave. It doesn't do anything to paid leave.
And this
And
passed
it-
separately just this week.
It passed a few weeks ago in the
Okay.
House. But yeah, it came over, so it has gotten held up every year because it keeps getting dropped in paid leave, which, as we know, is a whole different beast.
Yeah,
But it keeps getting dropped in there and either vetoed or this year just stalling.
okay,
And it syncs us up with federal law.
And this will finally sync the state up with federal law, where we have been out of sync with federal law for something like 30 years now.
Okay.
And this will bring us in line with that. So our larger employers already have to comply with this. It's the employers between 15 and 50 who are going to have to come into compliance with this. My understanding from the testimony, and you can hear more about this, is that many employers already comply with this because the state follows the federal guidance. But it created confusion
okay.
in some instances. So
Well,
this,
let's get rid of confusion.
Well, I'm inclined to wanna listen more about this, but I am gonna run this by the pro tem's office to make sure that we don't create some false sense that we're taking up larger paid leave issues.
There's no word of paid leave in.
it is all,
Medical leave.
yeah, so this is the existing unpaid leave law
Yeah,
that it's
I
adjusting.
totally get it. I don't wanna speak to this bill yet. until I've just talked to others. I totally understand the value of moving this forward.
30 years out of sync is not a great place to be.
So we'll see.
Okay.
Okay,
It is now past time and we have.
do you think that's everything we're going to get?
Um,
Are you waiting on bills this week?
so the two that died in the Senate, or not in the Senate, I'm sorry, in the House appropriations before crossing to the Senate
Mm-hmm,
are out of play.
okay.
And that leaves the only bill,
Well, they're out of play. We don't have them.
Well, but
if you
that's.
don't, well, they're not coming.
Yeah,
to you.
they're not,
Yeah.
yeah, but we've heard about
Same
those.
language.
Let
Yeah.
me just look at my bill status
Okay.
chart to see if there's anything else I have up there.
Okay.
So I keep my own chart, which kind of tracks. the
I need to
bills
start
as
doing
they're in
that as well.
Let's see, Truth and Reconciliation Commissions in your GovOps committee. Miscellaneous alcohol is me.
Oh, that's
So
right, okay, well,
You have that,
we
you
just
already
walked
took
through that.
testimony.
Yeah,
And
Yeah,
so.
yeah, and I've become,
yes, it's
so
Tucker's absence.
Tucker took my place and now I'm taking his place while he's out,
That's
so.
right, that's
Comes
right.
around.
Okay.
So I'll be back on that, and I know you have a bunch of alcohol bills that were in the Senate that you may or may not
May or may
want to even
not.
take up.
Yes, but
So-
yeah, we have little things on the alcohol bill that.
Right, so that's me as well, but
Okay.
that is, as far as I know,
Mhm,
everything that's there, and collective bargaining is in the House at this point.
yeah,
And my understanding is that they're planning to start working on that next week,
Oh, good.
once they're done with these Marathon House,
great.
floor
Are
sessions.
you available Friday morning for 15 minutes?
This
say?
Friday?
Yeah, like during our 8 to 9 policy discussion, because I'd like to just go over with you the little alcohol things.
I should
from our
be, yeah,
walkthrough.
I should be available from 8:30 on
Okay.
Friday.
Great,
so-
so we'll try to schedule for the last 15 minutes of that.
Great,
Okay, thank you so much, Damien.
thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming to us after the